Coffee, it's horrid, change it, take me roughly from behind. No, not like that, like this. Trousers off, tackle out, walk the dog, where's my present? All right, which one do you want me to do first?
Welcome to episode 11 of the Blackadder podcast. Ian, get me some more coffee, please. While you're at it. No, it doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, I did a visual joke there. That's not going to work very well on the podcast.
No.
How are you, Gerry, this week?
I'm looking for more coffee. Trousers down, tackle out. Come on.
It's too hot to stir it that way.
Yeah, I'm not bad.
Yeah, that's good. It's a bit drier this week.
Certainly. But all the better for watching this week's episode. I thought it was a high point.
Yes, it's a peak. I normally, in my notes, I highlight the quotes that I like, and there's only one or two, and this we've got 6. Mm-hmm. It's really good. Also, there was a commentary track on the DVD, so I've got lots more trivia. I'm just going to read out what they said.
Okay, fair enough. We could just drop them in as clips. Not save you any hassle, Ian.
Well, you can't really, because they've got the episode playing underneath. It gets a bit awkward.
Okay. Anything you want to say?
Sure, just remind folk to stop by blackadderpodcast.com if that's not where you're listening to the podcast, because we're there. We can chat about the episodes if you're interested in that sort of thing. Get us on social media and so on.
Yep, I'm sure if you search, you'll find us.
No doubt.
Up for a summary?
As always.
Well, why don't you stand and deliver it then? Crack on.
In Amy and Amiability, a sudden cash flow problem for the Regent leads him to consider a financially beneficial marriage and ask Blackadder to select him a bride. With little in the way of viable options, Blackadder introduces the Regent to a big spending society girl named Amy. But will the lady's dark secret mean the prince's woes are over, or just beginning?
Again, the kitchen is where we begin this week's episode. Blackadder is going through and complaining about the number of bills he has.
What bills does he have?
Well, that's what I've noted here. Why is he worried? I wasn't sure. Is this the household bills? Is it his own personal bills?
He can't have that many household expenses, so maybe it's debt repayments or something like that.
In any case, he feels like a pelican. Wherever he looks, there is an enormous bill in front of him.
Baldric has a brilliant plan.
What's that?
He should become a highwayman and just rob money, pay the bills with it.
And as a bonus, everyone would want to sleep with him.
Blackadder thinks that same thing would apply if he was a prostitute.
He thinks this whole highwayman nonsense is beneath him.
He does. Baldric, on the other hand, idolises at least one highwayman.
What did this remind you of?
I don't know.
The Scarlet Pimpernel.
Right, yes, it's exactly like that.
He idolises him.
That was literally only about 3 episodes ago.
Yeah.
I've completely forgotten it already. Yeah, Baldric idolises the Shadow, who he says is halfway to being the new Robin Hood.
Why are you only halfway?
Well, he takes from the rich, but there's no proof yet that he's giving anything to the poor.
Blackadder, just like he did with the Scarlet Pimpernel, has nothing but contempt for him.
Yeah, no, he's not impressed.
And he says that if he needs cash, all he needs to do is to ask Prince Fathead for a rise. And at this point, the bell rings.
Signifying that the bank is open.
Correct. So up to the Prince's lounge. Blackadder has a problem. The Prince puts a dampener on things immediately.
Good morning, sir. May I say how immensely rich you're looking. Now, was there anything you wanted, sir? Anything at all? Absolutely anything.
Well, yes, old fellow. I was wondering if you could possibly lend me a bit of cash.
But of course, sir, Cash?
Yes! I'm rotten, stinking, stony, stinking broke.
But sir, what about the £5,000 that Parliament voted you only last week to drink yourself to death with?
All gone, I'm afraid. You see, I've discovered this terrifically fun new game. It's called cards. What happens is, you sit round a table with your friends, and you deal out 5 cards each, and then the object of the game is to give away all your money as quickly as possible. Do you know it?
Vaguely, sir, yes.
All the chaps say I'm terrific at it.
I seem to remember I was very bad at it. I always seem to end up with more money than I started with.
Yes, well, it's all down to practice. I'm a natural, apparently. The only drawback, of course, is that it's pretty damned expensive. So basically, I was wondering if you could lend me a couple of hundred.
I'm afraid that's impossible, sir. I'm as poor as a church mouse that's just had an enormous tax bill on the very day his wife ran off with another mouse, taking all the cheese.
What am I going to do?
Yes, it's a difficult one. Well, let's see now. You can't borrow money. You're not going to inherit any money. And obviously you can't earn money. Sir, drastic situations call for drastic measures. If you can't make money, you'll have to marry it.
There's an interesting exchange on the commentary. It's Ben Elton and Richard Curtis and John Lloyd who are doing the commentary, where they talk about introducing plot and how to develop a plot in a comedy show. And they make the point, or Richard Curtis makes the point, that they very deliberately tried to introduce the plot threads in a humorous way so that folk would pay attention to them. Because they felt if you did it in a serious way with jokes around it, folk just remember the jokes and the plot gets lost. Ben Elton thought that just happened naturally. It wasn't done deliberately, but Lloyd and Curtis were quite clear that there was work done to make sure that that was in place properly.
Interesting insider information there. So the Prince thinks that marriage is a ridiculous idea. He's a gay bachelor, a roarer, a Roger, a puker, amongst other things. I
think possibly my favourite lines in the episode were Blackadder's response to that the modern church smiles on roaring and gorging within wedlock. And when he's asked about the puking, he says it's very much down to the conscience of the individual churchgoer.
But on top of that, he points out that the Prince is broke and he has to agree. So he tells Blackadder to fix it up. He likes girls that are lovers and laughers and dancers and...
bonkers. Down in the kitchen.
Blackadder is having trouble finding a suitable bride.
It's a bit of suspect maths here.
Okay.
He starts with, I think it's 262.
Okay.
And he takes away 251 and is left with 2.
Well, I'll tell you what's more suspect. You went straight for the maths.
Yeah.
I went more for the fact that, so he ruled out the over 80s, which is fair enough, but he ruled out the under 10s.
And in that time, maybe not?
No, really?
Oh, right, okay, the 11, 12 and 13
Yeah,
years.
11, so it's under 10, yeah, if you're 11 that's fine, but no under 10s.
Fair enough, yeah.
We find out that 39 of these potential victims, spouses, are mad. Baldrick thinks that they would be ideal.
But there's a drawback.
What's that?
They would be bigamists.
Why?
Because they all married the same donkey last week.
Horse.
Whatever it was. It's a donkey now.
Hung like one.
Yeah, so it leaves 2, and one of them is immediately ruled out.
Why?
She's met the prince.
Ah, yeah. So that leaves Caroline of Brunswick. But Blackadder demonstrates why she's not ideal.
We heard that at the top of the show.
We did. Yeah, so she's known as having the worst personality in Germany.
And Blackadder points out that there's some pretty stiff competition for that one.
Fair enough. Although he might have an idea.
Yes, half the front page has been cut out of the newspaper, which is confusing.
Yeah, who's done that and why?
Well, Baldwin has cut out a picture of the shadow.
For his scrapbook.
Yeah, Baldrick says he can't help it because his life is dark and shadowy and full of fear and trepidation. And Blackadder says so he's going to the toilet in the middle of the night and he doesn't keep a scrapbook of that, but turns out he does.
Yeah. In the society pages, Blackadder reads about a mysterious northern beauty, a Miss Amy Hardwood, who has been spending flippin' great wads of cash. So they've found their victim.
Their mark, so to speak.
Up in the prince's bedroom, Blackadder is dressing him, but he doesn't see the point.
Yes, he's concerned about being radished for non-payment of debts.
What is this radishing?
Well, it involves a de-trousering and the insertion of a large...
Okay, don't need to hammer it home.
No. Well,
that's enough. Blackadder then informs the prince that his money worries are over.
He's found him a bride with fantastic means.
Yeah, but the prince is not keen on her dad being an industrialist.
He loathes industrialists.
Yeah.
Sad, balding little proles.
one way of describing them.
I like the fact that he says that they're all puffed up just because they know where to put the legs in a pair of trousers. As if that's not common knowledge.
Blackadder, he points out that the man has more mills than the prince has brain cells.
7.
The prince shrugs his shoulders in agreement, fair enough. And he's also patented the ravelling Nancy.
Which ravels cotton.
Why?
No one's really quite sure about that.
Okay. So the prince asks Blackadder what the plan is, and he suggests that he should take her a note outlining the prince's intentions.
Yes, so the prince dictates a note.
From His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales to Miss Amy Hardwood. Tally ho, my fine, saucy young trollop. You're not see. Trip along here with all your cash and some naughty night attire, and you'll be staring at my bedroom ceiling from now till Christmas, you lucky tart. Yours with the deepest respect, etc., signed George. P.S. Woof woof. Well, what do you think?
It's very moving, sir. Would you mind if I changed just one tiny aspect of it?
Which one?
The words?
Oh, yes, I'll leave the details to you, Blackadder. Just make sure she knows I'm all man, with a bit of animal thrown in.
By the time Blackadder presents the message to Amy, it's different in tone.
Certainly is. Did you get to the flash art reference in there?
The woof woof.
But you're right. The note has certainly been edited. Amy is seated, and Blackadder reads his version to her, which includes reference to her tiny wee nosy.
Interesting, isn't it? Because when we last saw this actress, she was referring to her own nose in a fond way, wasn't she?
She was, yes. There's a similar childlike element to her personality.
Yeah, the guys in the commentary said that she uses a very similar accent but more French.
Fair enough. She then questions his reputation, that is, the prince's. But Blackadder assures her that he's just shy and not at all like the thick, crass character she's heard about.
No, he puts that on because of his nerves.
This seems to convince her. However, Blackadder is alarmed to discover that she actually wants to meet her potential husband.
That is a big concern, is it not?
Would be if the prince was I'm thinking,
But
but
he's a public personality, isn't he?
yes, and also it doesn't really matter. He is the prince, soon to be the king.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll have to look at the royal family here.
yeah.
You know, they seem to do not too bad with the ladies, the young princes, and I think if they worked as a joiner or a building site, they wouldn't be quite as appealing.
Maybe
They're certainly they're certainly not that easy on the eye, I wouldn't have thought.
It's arranged that the prince will serenade her on her balcony that evening.
And at this point, her father walks in.
He has some dire warnings.
Yeah, he's a stereotypical northerner.
Yes, and he warns Blackadder that he's not going to have his wife, he's not going to have his daughter married off. He likes her more than some of his pigs.
That's quite the compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. But if it's a prince that she's to marry, then he's fine. That's okay.
Anyway, as it is the prince, he can have her for 10 bob and a pickled egg.
Seems fair.
Blackadder then references Lady Hamilton.
Yes, so he says that he can see where Amy gets her wit from, but not so much her good looks and charm. And her father says no one ever made money out of good looks and charm. Lady Hamilton being the reference, obviously, Nelson's mistress.
Back to the kitchen at the palace, and Blackadder is complaining to Baldric, who is brutally stuffing a chicken.
Yeah, chicken or a goose maybe, or a turkey, I'm not sure. He was plucking it at the start of the episode.
He was. So he's talking about how he isn't looking forward to that evening, before insulting the Welsh. How?
Well, he insults Wales completely. He talks about its gangs of tough, sinewy men who roam the valleys, terrifying people with their close harmony singing. And the fact that you need to drink half a pint of phlegm just to pronounce the place names.
Blackadder then tells Baldric he would rather that Amy didn't see the prince before the wedding. And Baldric, quite civilly, suggests that wouldn't be very fair on her.
Yeah, it was an interesting point because we've mentioned earlier in this season that Baldric seems more stupid than he did in Blackadder 2.
Mm-hmm.
But on the commentary, Curtis and Elton were of the opposite opinion. They thought he had a bit more about him in this series. I think he's maybe just a bit more inconsistent. There's episodes where he's useful and intuitive, and there's episodes where he's utterly useless, depending what the script requires, what the story requires.
Yeah, I mean, he spent all that money on a turnip. That's an imbecile.
Yeah.
You know.
And then he burned the dictionary or the novel, whatever it was. But then in both seasons, there's times when he's relied upon to do something useful. Anyway.
In response to Baldric's concern, Blackadder says that it's not very fair on the prince, as Amy is wetter than a haddock's bathing suit.
And he then reminds Baldric that life isn't fair, because if it were, then things like this would not happen.
Things like what?
And he thumps him.
So we're at the balcony of Amy's house that evening, and the prince wants to know if he can shin up the drain and ask Amy if she is taking a consignment of German sausage that evening.
It's nicely written, isn't it?
Yeah.
So apparently, this was a very difficult scene to film, and scenes with Laurie and Atkinson in general were quite hard because Laurie in particular thought he wasn't funny.
Okay.
And he thought he was the worst thing in the show. And I think we talked about this previous season. Stephen Fry and Miranda Richardson thought they weren't funny. And apparently, when Laurie had these fits of melancholy or whatever, Atkinson would go along with it as well and, join in, this scene's not funny or whatever else. And ultimately it led to Ben Elton not showing up to rehearsals and just coming in when they filmed it. So they didn't have the debate about it.
Sensible solution. Blackadder has a more cunning plan. He doesn't want George shutting up that pipe.
No. Poetry first, sausage later.
And it's in the vein of a Cyrano de Bergerac.
It's an episode of Bergerac.
It is.
Okay.
So what does he do?
He hands the prince a poem and he reads it.
Yes, he starts his wooing. But who's the main character in this poem?
Well, the first one that the prince wants to read is Harold the Horny Hunter. And then it's replaced by one that Blackadder's come up with, which is about a lovely little dumpling and a lamb.
Yeah.
The regent thinks she may well come out and vomit on them.
So what follows is a sickly encounter during which time Blackadder has to restrain the prince from giving the game away, including pretending the wind made a noise like "Fwar, crikey."
Yes, and I think at some point Blackadder decides he can't trust the regent anymore. He's just going to have to step in.
Well, yeah, the prince can't control himself.
Yeah, he's asked to shout to her romantically, and he says, "Come on out here, you rollicking, trolloping sauce bottle, woof, woof."
So what does Blackadder resort to?
He takes on the regent's role in the conversation.
Yeah, he beats him up. I think he knocks him out.
Sidelines him, covers his mouth.
Yeah.
And, he engages in the conversation over the prince's protestations.
However, Blackadder thinks it's been a job well done and will ask her father for her hand in marriage the next day, and that's where we head to.
I should mention, because we had another woof woof, and that's the flash art reference. It's quite interesting to see. I think it shows a different light of that performance. You think, just anyone saying these lines isn't going to work. You have to actually deliver them in a particular way for it to actually make any kind of sense.
Yeah, it has to be a bit of gusto. So we're at Amy's house. Blackadder's meeting with the father. He tells him that the prince wants his daughter for his wife.
Yes, they immediately misunderstand that. And
What did he say? Well, his wife can't.
he can't have her. And he's so outraged, he says he's going to take off his belt and by thunder his trousers will fall down. But Blackadder points out, no, he wants to marry Amy, and that reassures
Yeah,
her
the father, he gets into a bit of a swoon and questions whether love can conquer such social divides. I think there's a worry there.
Yeah, but Amy points out there's a few examples in their own family.
Do you have any?
In my family? Well, her father himself married, when he was just the farmer's son, the lass who ate the dung. And her Uncle Ted was a bit of a pig poker, and he married the Duchess of Argyll. So that's quite a similar story. And Auntie Ruth and Uncle Isaiah. She was a milkmaid. He was the Pope. I wonder if there's a little bit of embellishment in these tales.
I think there might be.
Little sort of family stories that aren't quite true.
You think?
Well,
maybe. So the father accepts the situation and declares that they will never be poor again. At which point, Blackadder's attitude changes.
Yeah, his ears prick up. He did not miss that line.
So he asks him to expand upon it.
Yes, and it's explained that they have no money.
No, they've been living off larda butties for 5 years.
He's so poor, he uses his underpants to dry dishes.
Ugh.
So the wedding's off. It's unceremoniously.
And Blackadder twists the knife by admitting that it was him who wrote the poems.
All writteny by me wee, I'm afraidy weedy.
And they leave. We head back to the palace, where Blackadder hurriedly enters and is about to tell the prince not to spend... I don't think we mentioned it earlier, but Blackadder told him to start spending the
money, yeah.
the wedding present money. So he tries to tell him not to do it, but he stops dead in his tracks. Why?
The entire room's filled with things that are made of gold. The prince has spent a lot more than just the money that they were supposed to.
Yeah, so Blackadder goes back down to the kitchen, and in a panic, he tells Baldric of the crisis and his drastic plan to avert it.
Crisis, Baldric, crisis! No marriage, no money, more bills. For the first time in my life, I've decided to follow a suggestion of yours. Saddle Prince George's horse.
Oh, sir, you're not going to become a highwayman, are you?
No, I'm auditioning for the part of Arnold the Bat in Sheridan's new comedy.
Oh, that's all right, then.
Baldric, have you no idea what irony is?
Yeah. It's like Goldie and Bronzy, only it's made of iron.
Never mind. Just saddle the prince's horse.
Well, that would be difficult. He wrapped around that gas lamp in the Strand last night.
Well, saddle my horse, then.
What do you think you've been eating for the last 2 months?
Well, go out into the street and hire me a horse.
Hire your horse for 9pence? On Jewish New Year in the rain? A bare fortnight after the dreaded horse plague of old London town? With the blacksmith strike in its 15th week and the Dorset Horse Fetishists Fair tomorrow?
Right, well, get this on, then. It looks as though you could do any exercise.
That last line of Baldric's came out of nowhere, didn't it? I liked it. That's maybe my favourite as well.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Unfortunately for Baldric, though, it led to him being recruited as the horse.
It did indeed. So we're on the highway and we see a wealthy father and daughter travel by carriage. She seems to be complaining about her life and how she's treated, and is admitting to a host of indiscretions.
Yeah, she's pregnant and she's an opium fiend. And she loves a poet called Shelley. And she killed her mother.
The father doesn't really seem to care.
Yeah, he says, oh, well, never mind. Throughout this scene, once Blackadder comes into view at the window of their carriage, Rowan Atkinson's doing motion acting. It's quite amusing. If you watch this scene back, keep an eye on the way he moves. It's good. He's obviously now a highwayman, and he asks them to stand and deliver.
Now, she is clearly delighted by the excitement. I think she's got a very boring life. I mean, I don't believe any of these tales she's been telling her father. I think she's looking for attention.
Yes.
But the father tells the robber that he will be ballywell hung before he hands over his jewels, before a joke is made about.
Yes, being well hung. I think they skip over the joke about being well hung.
Yeah.
And there's a series of amusing exchanges between Blackadder and the man.
Describe.
First of all, he asks him to turn out his pockets, and the man says, never, sir. A man's pockets are his own private kingdom. I'll protect them with my life. And then he asks for a single kiss after he rejects the girl's offer of a jewel from her pants. And he says, never, sir. A man's soft lips are his own private kingdom, and he shall defend them with his life.
Yeah. I mean, she seems very keen to hand over the contents of her pants.
She does, and she offers to join him in a life of roguery and crime.
Yeah, but he declines, claiming his horse would collapse. And at this we see a saddled Baldric appear. He insists that they could try.
Yes, but he's told no.
He then complains that he has had Blackadder on his back for 10 miles without so much as a kiss.
Yes, so we get a great moment of development in the relationship between Baldric and Blackadder as they share a tender kiss.
Yeah, that was nice.
And after they leave, the girl is upset with her father for not defending her honour.
How does he respond?
He says to shut her face because she's a pregnant, junky fag hag.
Bit harsh.
It really is.
So we're in the forest. They sit down to divide the loot, And Blackadder initially seems to be quite reasonable about things.
Yeah, he's going to give Baldric his fair share of the spoils.
Yep, they did the robbery together, so therefore they should half it.
Absolutely, that is fair.
Of course, it's not as simple as that.
No, what happens?
Blackadder carries out a second robbery on his own and takes the loot from Baldric. And he seems happy enough.
Yeah, that's fair and square.
Yeah, I mean, it's logically sound.
Absolutely. Nothing to be upset about.
However,
they're rudely interrupted.
by who?
The Shadow.
Yes. And the Shadow sends Baldric off before demanding a kiss at gunpoint from Blackadder. He's a bit perplexed with this.
Yes. But then it's revealed
That what?
the Shadow is really Amy.
Yes, who has now killed her father.
Yes, much like the squirrel that she then kills.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah, she's killed the father for ruining the marriage.
well, that's what Blackadder assumes. But it turns out that it's really Blackadder she wants. And they agree for him to rob the prince and meet her back there the following day.
Yes, so that they can then run off to the West Indies. Blackadder says he has to think about it,
For about 3 seconds.
and he agrees to meet tomorrow. So we're back to the kitchen. Blackadder has his loot and is ready to leave, even though Baldric and Mrs. Miggins are not very happy.
Right, I'm off.
Oh, sir, but what about the danger? Look, the reward's going up day by day.
Ha! I laugh in the face of danger. I drop ice cubes down the vest of fear. Things couldn't be better, Baldric. She'll get me abroad and make me rich. Then I'll probably drop her and get 200 concubines to share my bed.
Won't they be rather prickly?
Concubines, Baldric, not porcupines.
I still can't believe you're leaving me behind.
Oh, don't you worry. When we're established on our plantation in Barbados, I'll send for you. No more sad little London for you, Balders. From now on, you will stand out in life as an individual.
Will I?
Well, of course you will. All the other slaves will be black.
Blackadder! Oh, what's all this I hear about you buying a bathing costume and 40 gallons of coconut oil? Are you going abroad then, sir?
Yes, I'm off.
Oh, sir! What a tragic end to all my dreams! And I'd always hoped that you'd settle down and marry me and that together we might await the slither of tiny adders.
Mrs. M, if we were the last 3 humans on Earth, I'd be trying to start a family with Baldric.
I was disappointed they felt the need to explain the porcupine joke. I think it would have been fine if they just left it with won't they be rather prickly.
Yeah. I really enjoyed how distraught Megan sounded at the end of that there.
And she's never expressed any interest in Blackadder. It's not like it's the Queen in the previous series where there's been a sort of a slow burn interest. There's nothing.
And in fact, last time we discussed how she was laughing at him, mocking him in front of the actors
Yeah.
for being a lowly butler.
And previously laughed at him in front of the writers and the French.
Yeah.
There's not even been a spark there.
No.
Anyway,
We're back in the forest. Amy is waiting when Blackadder arrives, but things don't go to plan for him.
no, she robs him and is going to return to kill him later that evening.
Yeah, she ties him up before she shows herself to be mad as she kills more squirrels.
Yes, just really doesn't like the squirrels.
Yeah. Now, for some reason, yeah, she leaves him saying she'll return at midnight for the loot and to kill him. Why? Why not?
Because that's what baddies do. They give away their evil plan and then they
Give you time to...
give you time to defeat it.
Yeah. It's an odd one.
Who knows? Maybe she's got a party to go to. She had been spending all her money in the city.
True. He then bemoans his fate. Shot by a transvestite on an unrealistic grassy knoll.
That's the first kind of fourth wall break we've had for some time, isn't it?
Yeah, but I quite liked it.
Yeah, no, it was good. Did you see a shooter behind the grassy knoll?
The magic bullet. Baldric appears, and Blackadder thanks him for this new experience.
Yeah, the first time he's ever been pleased to see Baldric.
Before being untied, we find out that Baldric is there to try and get the Shadow's autograph.
Yes, he's a big fan, but he has more information. The ransom money is up.
To what?
£10,000.
That's an awful lot of money back then.
Yeah, well, in today's money, that would be like £10,000.
So Blackadder at this sees a solution and tells Baldric to return with the loot and come back at midnight with 10 soldiers, a restless lynch mob, and some portable gallows.
Once again, Baldric being trusted to execute a plan, which he hadn't been earlier in this series.
That's a good point. There is an inconsistency, I think.
Yeah.
Where are we next?
Back in the prince's room.
The final scene.
He wakes and he's in love with Amy. He's so excited. And the newspaper has a nasty surprise for him.
Yes. Before that, he says he's hungry enough to eat 14 trays of breakfast plus a dolphin on toast.
Yes.
But yes, what's this shock that's in store for him in the newspaper?
Well, he's in love with Amy and he's reading the paper and she's been arrested and hanged. Somebody's tipped off the authorities and collected the £10,000 reward, and he calls them a snake.
So he continues to read. Now, I think his grief is very short-lived, but Blackadder gets a bit of a shock when the newspaper references an accomplice.
Yeah, this is a great sight gag, which I really enjoyed, where he drops his tray on the mention of an accomplice, but when it's followed up by noting that nobody has any idea who that is, the tray leaps back into his hand.
Yeah, it was nice.
I liked it. The Regent has a shocking reveal for Blackadder, a heartbreaking moment.
What was that?
He doesn't need money after all. All of this was for nothing. He found £10,000 he didn't know he had in the biscuit barrel last night.
Ah, that's not too good.
But there's a remedy.
Yep, we finished the episode with Blackadder suggesting to the prince that they have a game of cards.
And for the second episode in a row, we finish with the Regent telling Blackadder that his idea is excellent.
Yeah, Blackadder being up reminds me of Basil Fawlty in Fawlty Towers. There's one particular scene, I think, in Communication Problems where he realises that for the first time in his life he's up.
Yeah.
He finds some money, won't get into it, but he's really ecstatic. And I think that this is the type of thing where, the character is up in the episode.
It's interesting that you mentioned Fawlty Towers. It came up on the commentary track. The guys were saying that it was a significant influence on this show. First of all, it put them off doing a contemporary show, kind of prompted them to do the historical show, and also from season 2 onwards, it was Fawlty Towers that inspired them to do this sort of tighter setup with the smaller sets and less of the... Also, we've not done season 1 yet, but it was a wider, grander production, and Fawlty Towers was a big influence on them. Yeah,
it makes sense, and I mean, certainly that, in the 80s, only been maybe 10, 12 years since Fawlty Towers was on the television, it's understandable that that would be a big influence in any comedians, certainly in the UK.
And especially on the BBC.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's us. I think, yes, I said at the start of the podcast, I think a high point perhaps in season 3.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Definitely my favourite of season 3 so far.
Okay. Well, at the end of season 3, which will be next time.
Yeah, next time.
We can discuss what we think is our favourite episode then. Maybe the final episode will beat it into second place.
Who knows?
15th of October 1987 was the original air date. In terms of stars, we've got Miranda Richardson. We've spoken about her before. She played Amy Hardwood and The Shadow. This is her 7th of 9 Blackadder appearances.
She's very good.
You would have recognised her father, Mr. Hardwood, who was played by Warren Clark.
Yes.
He sadly died in 2014, aged just 67. Known for Clockwork Orange, Chuggington, Pole Dark, Bleak House, Down to Earth, The Manageress, ID, Top Secret, great movie, Shelley. Now, Shelley, the actor who played Shelley, died just the other week there.
Ah.
Coronation Street, but most famous for his role in DL and Pasco.
Of course. He was also the voice of The Shadow when he was doing the male voice in this episode.
Ah, okay.
Uncredited for that.
Well, on that, this episode is a parody of the 1945 film The Wicked Lady. Now, that involved a woman pretending to be a highwayman, and in this episode, Amy talks, and when she puts on the male voice, it's a James Mason style voice, as he was in that movie.
It's also 2 episodes in a row for Miranda Richardson with miming to a male actor doing her voice.
Ah, yeah, well spotted. Let's go for a biggie this week. Okay. Hugh Laurie.
Who's that?
The man who played Prince George.
Has he been in anything?
Let's see. Born in 1959, an old Etonian, and then Cambridge Footlights, alongside Stephen Fry, Emma Thompson, lots of other famous actors. A rower for Cambridge, and his father was an Olympic gold medal winner in 1948. I think that was London.
Okay.
An excellent musician, favours the piano. Released a number of albums. I think he's quite highly regarded.
Yeah, I think especially latterly after his big role in America, he used that platform to get a lot more of his music out there.
He was always good on a bit of Frying Laurie.
On the piano,
Yeah. His son unsuccessfully auditioned for the role of Harry Potter.
There you go.
Seemed to be too young, I think.
Talking of roles he didn't get, he was also the original Jonathan Creek.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
He dropped out before they started filming.
If you want to find out more about that, you can listen to the Jonathan Creek podcast.
The guys in that are amazing. You should listen to that one.
He's got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Not a surprise.
So, in America, known primarily for House. Also The Night Manager, Stuart Little, The Bill, a bit of Frying Laurie, Jeeves and Wooster, Alfresco, and The Young Ones. Just looking at his IMDb page, it's interesting that he was in one episode of The Bill in the UK.
Yeah.
Just a year or so before starring in House. And in House, he has earned £400,000 per episode.
Okay.
But, people might, perhaps Americans won't appreciate really. I mean, he was big in the 80s, and then his career sort of tailed away. There was a period where, he was doing voiceovers and he was starring in The Bill for one episode.
Yeah.
And now he's got a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame and he's one of the most famous faces in television. But for a while, he sort of time had passed. He was, he was Jeeves and Wooster, he was in Blackadder, and maybe for 10 years, not a lot going on. In the 90s, perhaps.
Yeah.
Shows you.
Yeah. He's got a new show that's just started. I can't remember what it's called, but it's on the side of all the buses in Glasgow.
Yeah, I saw a few clips for it. I'm not sure. I might give it a watch.
Give it 5 years and see if we'll love it.
Barbara Horn played Sally Cheapside. That was the victim of the robbery.
Yes, with the jewel in her pants.
Yep. Most of her CV is off camera. She's done a lot of work in the art department, but she is also an actress. Starred in or appeared in Catastrophe, Little Britain, Taggart at the Bill, Castles, and Dr. Finlay, as well as Casualty. And depends when this episode goes out, we'll discuss her in more detail because she appeared in Mother Redcap, a Jonathan Creek episode.
I think that's episode 11 of Jonathan Creek, so it should come out the week after this.
I think it's in the next episode.
No, the week before this.
Yeah, we're about to record it, yeah. So we mentioned it before. Roger Avon played the Duke of Cheapside. He died in 1998, aged 84. He has been in The Bill, Our Friends in the North, The Baker Street Boys, Sykes, The Lightly Lads, On the Buses, The Dick Emery Show, The Benny Hill Show, Doctor Who from 1965, and Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. Don't know what that's about. Murder at the Gallop, which is Margaret Rutherford, Miss Marple.
Your favourite Miss
movie,
Marple?
My favourite. Citizen James, Hellfire Club.
That's not far off the club that was mentioned.
That was the Naughty Hellfire Club, yeah. And Emily Enterprises, which we've mentioned before as well. Okay, any other trivia for us, Ian? Or have you dropped it all in?
I've dropped it all in, yeah.
Okay. All I have here is Blackadder mentions Caroline of Brunswick in the episode. Now, the real Prince George married Princess Caroline of Brunswick, who was his cousin. And apparently, he was already married, so it was a bigamous affair, and he was drunk at the ceremony. She lived in exile, and he unsuccessfully tried to divorce her. It was a very, very messy situation.
Doesn't sound great, does it?
No. Favourite line this week?
The one about it being down to the conscience of the individual churchgoer.
Okay, yep, that's a good one. I had the Feel Like a Pelican, but I might change it to his cutting remark to Mrs. Miggins and her response about how he'd rather marry Baldrick or start a family with Baldrick.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay. Next time, final episode of this season.
Yep.
Duel and Duality. So we can look forward to that.
One to wait for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Until then, I think that's us.
Okay, cheerio.
Bye-bye.